All right, so before I begin, let me just point you towards the article which I had just released talking about the toxic psychology of Riot Lyte. I'll link that down in the description below. But this is part of a little tidbit that I did within there, but I think it's probably going to get really overshadowed because it was a small portion of the entire article, but it was still astonishing nonetheless. So I've decided to create a video of it here, which is evidence, in fact, that Riot does shadow ban people from Reddit, and that Reddit and Riot are in cahoots with each other. So let's go ahead and bring up the video of what I'm talking about. This is a presentation that Riot Lyte had done at the Games Developer Conference in 2015. 2015. And he, gets into like all the details of exactly, how they did it or why they did it, in fact. So let's go ahead and pull that up here. Okay, so it starts a little bit before this entire presentation it's a lot about the data behind toxic behavior within League of Legends and how to reform toxic behavior within the player base, etc. A lot of this stuff I go through within the entire article, but we're gonna get to the juicy part of it here. So let's see what this is about.
And when toxic Joes are the loud minorities in your community, because of how social media is today, they have an overwhelming speakerphone. They, by themselves, can sway and control your culture. In fact, we see this a little bit in recent league discussions.
So you can see immediately right here that he's essentially trying to pin the entire discussion upon players or people within the community that may be toxic or talking about negative things when in fact that is completely subjective based upon his perception of how he is viewing said comments or said discussions. And also too, even if they are negative or even if they are critical about a particular thing, that doesn't mean that they aren't important to not discuss. So just notice the little language clues that he gives within this entire discussion, because there are a lot of them, and that further goes into just further, I guess, delvings into psychology itself. So just remember these types of things whenever you hear anyone speak about things that are negative or things that should be viewed as positive, etc. Like you see this in a lot of his speech, in fact, and he kind of states it as fact that what he's doing is necessarily correct or just. So let's get back into this.
Just 11% of players accounted for the vast majority of negative posts in some of our recent discussions. And as a group, they drove the perception of the entire majority.
Okay, let's pause there because he's saying 11% had been about the majority, the negativity, etc., which he still doesn't define what negativity is. No, keep noticing that. In fact, he doesn't define what negativity actually is, and it's true though that there are groups of people that can actually sway the discussion on Reddit, just because of the initial comments or the initial people that actually get into a thread to begin with. But we'll get further into that. And yeah.
We also saw that the first few votes, whether it's upvotes or downvotes on that discussion, those first few votes define the eventual perception of that discussion.
Yeah, exactly. So there it is again. It is a common factor. A lot of content creators or journalists can talk about this too, because I'm pretty sure a lot of them know this. And the fact that when you create a post, like say you release an article on r/League of Legends, the initial people that comment on it have an overwhelming majority of power in determining exactly what is talked about within that entire thread. So, it's very common to see in like post-match interviews or things like that, just people dictating exactly what happens within the thread based upon who comments first. And so that's why a lot of people actually end up trying to comment on the thread before even reading or watching the content. And in fact, there will be a lot of Reddit users that only read the quote and that's it, so that then they could just go off of the quote when they don't actually, read, or they don't listen to the entire interview. That's why you see a lot of these post-match threads or interviews, etc., go around that entire access, I guess you could say. And this is also too why you see sometimes with people like like anytime Thorin produces any type of content whatsoever, there are oftentimes people that end up commenting, or like Richard Lewis, they end up commenting and saying, oh, Thorin's a bad guy, or Richard Lewis is a bad guy. They did this one time, or whatever the fuck. And so it dictates the entire conversation. And like, that's not a happenstance. Like, that is clearly exactly what dictates the entire conversation. So yeah, he's spot on with that, and Riot at least knows this. So I mean, what do you think they do with that type of information? I don't know. They could maybe do something to sway said conversation. Who knows, right? I always say that Reddit is the easiest platform to manipulate by far, 1,000% because the upvotes aren't really tracked. You could just bot upvotes and shit. And then on top of that, you could just put in your own propaganda of the comments themselves, because they know that the early comments dictate exactly what everyone else is talking about. So it's a complete fucking cesspool. But and this is why it's a cesspool, as I will reveal here. So let's continue.
In independent research by Stanford, they recently found out that when content creators get downvoted, they also start downvoting other content creators, and they create lower quality content.
Yeah, this is this is just a little tidbit, but yeah, it's entirely true. Like, so I've had my own experiences, and I'm sure a lot of other content creators have, to where they post their own article or their own video, etc., interview, and then it immediately gets downvoted. And you're just like, okay, there's realistically no way that you could have read or watched the content or anything. So like, you're doing this out of some other reason. And clearly sometimes it's psychological, and the fact that maybe other content creators or other interviewers, etc., post around the same time. So they think that by downvoting that person, that somehow puts their post up above them, which I guess technically it kind of does. But then you have all these other people that are posting like gameplay, plays or whatever, and they're like, okay, yeah, I'm just gonna downvote everyone on here. Or in fact, even worse, when they get their post downvoted, they're just like, fuck everyone else, I'm just gonna downvote everyone in r/new. It's like, so it's a cyclical cycle, and it's very childish way to think, because that's not even how fucking Reddit works. So yeah, it's very dumb, but also too, it is very difficult to survive the new category of any subreddit, really, because you have to dodge all of these little trolls and like people that just hover around r/new and downvote shit just based upon, maybe people that they like, or people that they don't like, and upvote people that they like, etc. And so, yeah, this is why it helps, especially with, r/League of Legends new policy, to where you can post on your own Twitter, to have those initial upvotes to dodge all the trolls, which, I mean, like, let's be honest, that's a type of vote manipulation anyways, right? Because you're just leveraging your own fan base. So really, like, it would become then that the people that necessarily have the larger fan base are impervious to the troll downvotes, or the people that dislike them and their downvotes and stuff. So it's a complete fucking cesspool. But yes, this does happen.
This creates a vicious cycle. In fact, from just these pieces of data, you can see why a small minority can create a persistent negative perception in your community. But there is hope.
Hey, remember what I said about negative? he said a negative perception in your community, but there is hope. You can change this. You can you can change this all by the magical pill of shadow banning people. Like, fuck, dude. I couldn't make this up. I can't make this up. This is why I have to go bit by bit through this video, because it's so fucking unbelievable. Like, this is the shit that you hear in like the conspiracy theorists and stuff of just like, yo, no, they really shadow banned me. And it's like, okay, yeah, sure, dude.
So many online communities have started using something called shadow bans. The idea here is that a player is banned without their awareness. So in the Reddit example, a player believes they are still making a post, but no one would see the post. So no upvotes, no downvotes, no responses. But shadow bans are not the same thing as responding with silence to negative behaviors.
By the way, if you guys had missed it, I'll also link that down in the description below. And the fact that Reddit also created a new feature, which I forgot what it's actually called, but essentially what they do is they automatically collapse comments. Let's see if I could find it here. Oh, it's called crowd control. Yeah, so that's like their I guess name for the function of what it actually is. But yeah, it's called crowd control. I did an article about this previously, and r/League of Legends actually uses this crowd control in order to automatically collapse comments to where they're grayed out, even though it's not downvoted. So this is another tactic that they use in order to quell, negative discourse, I guess, of what they would like to call it. And happenstance too, this happened around the time that, well, guess what? TSM had that leak with Lena and Dardoch and all that shit and blah, 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 right? And so it was a lot of negative press about, the entire LCS league, etc. So, yeah, you can see that once again, they're pretty in big cahoots with Reddit. But anyways, let's continue with at least this story.
In the early days of the internet, silence ban players could learn that they could get away with these behaviors. They know that you were seeing the behaviors, they know that you could be damaged by the behaviors, and nothing would be done. But with shadow bans, we've changed the power, right? We've given the power back to the neutral and positive players.
Whoa. With this new shadow ban, we can solve all your problems as a company because we give the power back to the neutral and positive players, right? Like, and that's to say that they are the arbiter of that truth, to where they can determine who is actually a neutral or a positive player and who is a negative player. Oh yeah, the negative player is the people that just talk shit about you or your company or about any of your fucked up ideologies or, your fucked up psychology, etc. Like, it's so absurd. Like, just the fact that he's saying this with a straight face, and maybe anyone in the audience isn't questioning this, of just like, wow, that's kind of weird that he's saying that. I mean, then again, they're all in, big companies anyway, so yeah, they probably want more control, just like he does, clearly. But anyways, let's continue.
The negative player never really knows if they lost their microphone or their megaphone. And in a recent collaboration with Reddit to reduce negative posts, we saw just one shadow ban improve the behaviors of 79% of posters. Little tweaks.
Oh my God. Yep. He just admitted that Riot and Reddit have done a collaboration to shadow ban content creators, and they found that after shadow banning someone, 79% of them reformed. The fuck does that even mean? You don't even explain what reform actually means. He still doesn't, as I'm going to unpause. But he doesn't explain at all what reform actually fucking means. How absurd is that you don't even give definitions of negativity, reform, or even positivity or positive players? You don't give any definition to any of this. Like, that should be the fucking smoking gun of that. Well, this guy is clearly bullshitting, and he's just using this tactic in order to, entirely benefit his company and, avoid negative press, etc. Like, it's so, like, the mental gymnastics that you have to perform in order to say this with a clear face, but also too, the fact that people don't realize the language that he's using and the way that he's using it. It's like, once you understand how people talk in this type of way, once you understand like the psychology about it, it's very easy to fucking spot someone being a bullshitter like this. Like, it's so absurd. Just understanding the fundamentals of language is so powerful. I'm telling you guys, like, if there's one skill in your life that you could learn, it's understanding language, and that will make you so powerful in any field that you go into, for sure. But yeah, this is absurd. So yes, Riot Lyte has admitted to shadow banning content creators. Like, that's ridiculous. And they've been collaborating with Reddit. Like, I don't know what more evidence you need. But anyways, let's go ahead and let him explain his way out of this or something.
Like these can stop the minority from inflicting their perception, their reality on your community.
To prevent the minority from inflicting their perception on your reality. That's like some, the absurdity of that statement is so fucking crazy, dude. Like, so I mean, not to get fully into this, but you know that the whole reason of why the freedom of speech law is so good for America, it's not, you don't protect freedom of speech for the people that are in power. Like, that law or that amendment or whatever the fuck is there to protect the people that are at the lowest rung of the social ladder or economic ladder or any ladder of power. It's so that they can constantly have a voice. And when you override that, you get situations like this, to where it's people within power that then say that, no, you don't get to have a voice, in fact. Like, wow. I cannot believe he just said all of this shit that came out of his mouth in like 3 minutes. It's so absolutely fucking absurd. It's so like totalitarian type shit. It blows my fucking mind, guys. It blows my mind that no journalist has talked about any of this shit. And it's I know it's kind of difficult because it is like under the rug type of thing, and who's ever gonna really look at any of this shit anyways, like I have. But and also too, like, who the fuck is old enough in order to recognize any of this shit? But it just blows my mind how none of this was ever talked about ever in esports media at all. And I feel like, or even games journalism, and I feel, and it's funny, by the way, I'm not a fucking journalist, as I've said constantly, but I seem to do fucking something like a journalist. Anyways, I digress. It's ridiculous to just hear the absurdities out of this guy's fucking mouth. It's insane.
So that about wraps it up today. Hopefully this talk gave everybody something to think about and to act.
Yeah, it certainly gave me something to think about. Anyways, yeah, there you have it. Riot Games and Reddit are in cahoots. And yeah, Reddit is controlled by Riot, and r/League of Legends is controlled by Riot. Yeah, anyways, go ahead and upvote this shit on Reddit. No, I'm just fucking kidding. I'm probably not even gonna post this shit on Reddit. But yeah, it's pretty absurd. Anyways, yeah, go share my article, etc. Check out my crowd control article as well too, which will give you a little bit of tidbits about, what I was talking about with collapse comments. But yeah, it's so absurd, right, guys?